Robert Plank Show, episode 144. Mental illness is an asset. Create predictable income using checklists, life mission statements, and tribal connections with Mike Veny. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. Our guest today is Mike Veny. Now, have you known someone who lives with mental health challenges? Or do you want to learn to better manage your own mental health challenges? Or even better, how do you really transform the stigma surrounding mental health? Well, our very important special VIP guest is going to take care of all that and more. How are things today, Mike?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Robert?
Better than ever. Just getting kicked back on this Monday morning, ready to do some of the entrepreneurial lifestyle stuff.
Cool, and hello to your listeners out there.
I'm super glad that they're listening and that you're here. So, could you tell us about yourself, Mike, and what makes you different and special?
Oh, what makes me different and special?
Oh yeah.
I'm Mike. That's what makes me different and special. No, I am a mental health speaker, and I'm also a drummer, and I have a very unique business that really helps people who are struggling with mental health issues, a big topic in this country right now. And at the same time, I work with corporate America with drumming to teach adults how to work better together in the workplace. That's
Interesting.
me.
Cool. So, out of all the stuff you listed, the drumming sounds like super crazy and out there, which is something I love. So, can you tell us about that drumming stuff?
Well, I started playing drums in the fifth grade, and the reason I started drumming was because I heard it on Sesame Street, and I always just liked the sounds of the drums. And for some reason, I was struggling with mental health issues and behavioral health issues. In fact, I was hospitalized 3 times in a psychiatric hospital and expelled from 3 schools for behavior problems, and actually tried to take my own life at age 10. So drumming was the only thing that calmed me down and made me feel good. It worked better than the other medication they were giving me. And so I decided to become a professional drummer, not just because it's cool. I mean, it is pretty cool if you're a drummer, but also because it was my medication. And I'm 37 years old, and it's still my medication that I use. And what I love about it is I'm able to share it with others. So I do a very advanced form of what we call drum circles. And a drum circle is typically when you have people in a circle drumming and jamming along to grooves. But I have created a lot of activities and games for adults to use with drumming to not only play great music, but to learn some lessons about working with each other.
And that's awesome. So, did I hear that right? That you don't you don't medicate or anything like that. It's all just these drumming exercises.
Yeah, and when it comes to mental health, and for any of you listening out there, seek the guidance of a doctor, whenever you have any kind of issue. And I, worked with my therapist and just basically came to the conclusion that I was going to try what we call alternative medication, which is, exercise, meditation, good friends, and music.
Cool. So instead of the maybe like the shortcut way, which seems easy but seems to have these other side effects, you kind of found your own way to make this thing work.
Yeah, and can I say something about that? That we as a society are shortcut people sometimes. If we're single and we want to be in a relationship, we can just quickly download a certain app and just start swiping away at different profiles. And I'm learning more and more that in order to move forward in your life, sometimes things involve real difficult work, and you have to see certain things as a process, not a destination, such as building your business, or building your career.
So, let's talk about that because you took us up to about age 10 or so, and you discovered this drum circle thing. And obviously, it's been a couple decades since that. So, how did you get from point A to point B, I guess?
Well, in my mind, I think my vision when I was 16 was that I just wanted to play drums in a jazz club with drunk people in the audience. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I told my parents that, and I think they really were very concerned, but they still supported me. They understood, supported me. And when I started drumming and playing professionally, I also started teaching privately. And there was an organization that asked me to come in one day and work with a group of kids. They said, "Can you teach drums to a group of kids?" And I said, "Okay, I'll see if I can figure it out." And I did that. And it worked so well that they started asking me to work with adults. And I thought, this is weird. And then more companies started asking me, and I realized that I had a problem on my hands that I could either surrender to or run away from. And a lot of times, what I've learned, Robert, is that when we have opportunities in life, sometimes we can surrender to them or run away from them. But if you let your ego get caught up in, this is how I want to look to the world, and don't allow yourself to surrender to opportunities, sometimes that can be a lost career-changing thing in your life. So I surrendered to it, and next thing I know, I was booked doing interactive drumming events around New York State. Now I'm doing it around the country. In fact, I'm going to be in Haiti in October doing it with a company. So I'm loving it.
And that's awesome. And I know that we kind of have two sides of the coin to talk about today. Like there's the part of the business that you've built, and then there's this message you have and these techniques you have for solving this problem. And just the thing I like about that, and I guess the common thread I keep hearing from entrepreneur after entrepreneur is that they kind of have some kind of an idea of what they want to do, and they kind of like do it, and they put all their energy into it, and then it leads to this next logical step. It leads to this next logical step, but it's one of those things where it's like you wouldn't have, like you said, like you wouldn't have come across the becoming a public speaker or teaching this drum circle stuff to adults if you hadn't first just tried it with kids, and even that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't first like had this dream of being a drummer and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you just said that, because it's like literally you take you and me right now. We're doing this podcast interview. Next time in California, I might ask you to meet up for coffee. We go to a really cool coffee shop and discover that you and I both want to go into the coffee business and end up building a coffee business that's even bigger than Starbucks. That's just kind of how life works. But, you and I would both have to surrender to that at some level, if it were to happen. The other thing I want to bring up is the importance of mission statement in life. And mission statement is a thing that sometimes when people are building businesses, they see that little spot in the business plan and struggle to find powerful words that can go in there. But a mission statement is so important to life, and it's something that you discover with time. It's nothing you can go out and get tomorrow. And I discovered that my mission in life was to empower people to connect authentically. And that's if you hang out with me as a friend. That's when I work on the mental health stuff. I'm empowering people to connect with themselves. And when I do the drumming, I'm empowering people to connect. So it's actually really just one theme that I basically express in several different ways.
And I mean, so is there a reason why the drum circle stuff works, or do you have a theory on that? And is it a matter of like people having a way to express themselves? Is it some kind of an outlet? Is it the group aspect? Is it a focus? Is it in the zone aspect? Like, what do you think makes this drumming thing work?
Well, it's everything you just said, actually. And, my initial thought was, it's because drumming is just cool. That's why it works. But no, it works for several reasons. One of the things that I'm learning is that people are tribal. We all are tribal people. And even if you are listening to this right now and you are an introvert, we still have a need at some deep level to be part of a group. And when I do a drumming event, every single person involved is part of that group. And we all get to bond. The other thing that happens is when you have people in a circle, it really allows people to take off their mask, their social shell, and just be themselves. And if you think about kindergartners, how they sit in a circle and do things, they get to just kind of be themselves. And even 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous are very successful because people are sitting in a circle. It makes everyone an equal, and it immediately allows everyone to feel good. The other thing is the pent-up aggression that we all carry. I mean, all of us have stress, different issues that we're walking around with, and to be in a safe environment where you can just hit stuff and make noise and act like a fool, it's something that people just never get to do at all. So that's, some of the short answer as to why I believe the drum circles are successful.
And even when you describe that, it almost sounds like kind of with the drumming, it's almost like going back to that kindergarten kind of age when things were simpler, or you were happier, and all the weight of being an adult didn't kind of weigh you down. And you know what that reminds me of? You know what I always wanted to try was that thing where you pay like $5 and you get to have a bat and you get to like beat the crap out of a car. It's almost, it's almost like that kind of thing, but it's like
Yep.
but safer, I guess, because you're using drums.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like, think about the world we live in, with all the news around violence. How many people are living with pent-up aggression that they need to let out in a healthy way? And that's why I think it's just important for all of us, whether it's drumming or something else, to find healthy ways to let out your aggression, especially if you're an entrepreneur building a business. Because you know what? It's a lovely thing to be an entrepreneur, but really difficult to get your project off the ground. Really difficult.
So, I mean, let's talk about that. And I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Like, what have you found that, I mean, out of all our years of entrepreneurship, like, what do you think people need to be doing differently? Like, not just as far as like their actions, but also as far as like their inner game and their inner voice and all that stuff. Like, what should people be doing differently as entrepreneurs as opposed to just employees?
Wow, that's a great question, and I'm going to try to answer this as quickly as I can out of respect for everyone's time. There's two things. Number one, I'm talking to the people who are listening who are just thinking about starting a business or in that beginning phase. And one thing I always suggest to people starting out is to not spend much time talking about your idea, but executing your idea. Because a lot of times in today's entrepreneurship world, people really just get caught up in the idea of just going to business plan competitions and just talking about their idea to their friends, but very little time on action. And action is uncomfortable. Action is difficult. Action makes you feel vulnerable. You actually have to go out and sell whatever it is that you are trying to make. And I think it's really important to do that. And for those that are in business like myself, one thing I suggest that has really helped me increase my income is the importance of writing down all of the processes in your business into an operations manual. So this way, you can run a business from a checklist. So my business is very easy for me to run because I just go to the checklist. My assistant goes to the checklist. Everyone on my team has a checklist. And this way, if I'm not around, there's a predictable way for this machine to run. And so a lot of people never get to that point because they say it feels too corporate or it feels like they're in the regular job that they were trying to leave. But that actually is one of the reasons that a business like UPS is so successful, because all of the drivers have a checklist for different things that they have to do. That's why they are, I'm going to say, predictable for the most part with delivering what they deliver. So that's very important for entrepreneurs to hear.
So do you have a specific checklist you can kind of walk us through that you use in your business?
Absolutely. One of my favorite checklists to use is my budgeting checklist. And each month I have to deliver a budget for the upcoming month. I have to do this on the 25th. And if it's not done by the 25th, believe it or not, my assistant has a checklist item to email me and remind me, because we have to upload that into QuickBooks because there needs to be a budget before the first of the month for the following month. And part of that checklist in making a budget includes listing all the income that I project coming in, but doing that on the conservative side, because a lot of times when we project income, we get all excited and like to put what we hope the income will be. And one thing I've learned as a business owner is it's really important to, yes, have goals, but also be realistic. And at the same time, with expenses, be very aggressive, looking at worst case scenarios. And this has allowed me to make the finances of the business actually very predictable for the most part, which is a very important goal that I achieved.
So instead of flying by the seat of your pants, you actually are treating it like a real business, like a real machine, not just something where you're playing around as a hobby.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to treat it like a real machine. And you know what? If you don't, you're not going to make money from it. And one of the things that I've learned the hard way, and maybe you've experienced this too with people that are just starting out, a lot of people start businesses because they want to get out of the corporate world. They don't like feeling controlled or held down or like they have to be under someone else. And when they get into business, they get really excited, but they eventually discover that the only way to grow their business is to actually become more corporate like, in the sense that you have to run things with predictable systems and processes and policies. And that's very painful. So for a lot of you listening, what I'm saying might be very, very painful, but I promise you, for those of you that really make an attempt to develop these processes, you are going to see an immediate change in your income.
And I think that was a pretty tough lesson to learn. I mean, for me, it took many years to kind of have that realization. And I think that a lot of us, or a lot of people who are employees, they want to just quit and have the freedom, and they just want to wake up and stay in their pajamas all day and click the button and the money comes out of the computer. And it's like, if only it worked that way, right? If only there was a way to do that. And I mean, we both kind of laugh about it, but I mean, I think that at some point or another, we've kind of all secretly hoped that was true, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the reasons for that, I believe, is television and what we see in the media about business. I mean, there's so many shows out on television about business and Shark Tank. And so a lot of times, you know, we are creatures of what we see in society. We develop skewed perspectives about what business is. And one thing I always tell people, if you want to see one of the most successful businesses in the country, go down to your local laundromat. It's one of the most successful businesses in the country is a laundromat, but most people don't even think of that because it's like, oh, that's boring, you know? Right. So a lot of times we get caught up more in the sexiness behind the idea and our idea versus just running a solid machine.
And that's pretty powerful because, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, well, which would you rather like? I mean, the whole point of having your own business is to make money. So which would you rather have? A really sexy idea that makes $0 or like a boring idea that makes a good amount of money?
Yeah, I'm going to take the boring idea.
yeah, and then I mean, and there's so many stories like that of people who like they had a really good idea in the back of their head, and they went ahead and created the money-making business first, and then they were able to go ahead and do the dream. Like you look at your Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or something, like they all kind of did the I don't necessarily want to say practical, but they did the, like you said, like the unsexy path first, and then once they were able to like get that running, then they could go and play around and have fun.
Yes, no, absolutely. And can I just actually circle back to the mental health thing for a moment?
Let's do it.
You know, I still live with mental health issues. You know, I struggle with depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. And I actually struggle with it so painfully that my entire body is affected by it. Yesterday, I couldn't move practically because of the depression. And you know, I really wanted to move, but I couldn't. And I'm not being lazy. I exercise and all that stuff. But having the checklist in place made it so much easier to get certain things done when I was depressed. So the beautiful thing about process is that if you're a person like me who struggles with mental health issues, it actually makes it a lot easier to get your work done. And even if you're not in business for yourself and you're just working a regular job, creating processes for yourself is going to make your life easier.
And I love that. And the whole thing about those checklists that I found is that, you know, as I'm creating them, or if I do that, I feel like it's almost kind of a waste of time until those days when there's just so many things to do, like my focus is so split, or there's such a deadline where I have to like get a bunch of stuff done, and it's like, and for those times when I'm in a rush, there's all those things that I intuitively like think I could have handled, but I always end up, you know, missing steps or doing something in the wrong order. Or like you said, I think that's pretty cool that even if you can't show up, or you don't show up on a certain day to get a certain thing finished, then someone else can just kind of pick up that checklist and do it for you.
Exactly. And I agree with you so much too. Setting them up is a pain. I get stressed out setting up these checklists. It's like, why am I wasting my time thinking through this? But when you have days where there's a lot of things going on, you will feel very grateful for this simple ancient form of entrepreneurial technology, the checklist.
Whoever invented it, I mean, they're centuries, thousands of years dead, but what a genius, whoever that person was.
Yeah.
So cool. So kind of along those lines of your business and checklists and stuff like that. Could you tell us about everything that you do from the? I know that you have like a podcast, you do speaking, you have some websites. Can you tell us about all that cool stuff you do?
Sure. I have a podcast. It's called The Mike Veny Show, and it only has 3 episodes, but it's people like yourself that are inspiring me to get a little more disciplined in that. And actually, I need to revisit my process for that, producing the podcast to make it a little smoother to fit my life. In addition, I write for a website called Health Central. I write a lot of mental health articles that are there to help people. I write for Corporate Wellness Magazine. And I also have 2 websites. One is called UnleashYourGroove.com. That is my interactive drumming website. And the other for mental health is called TransformingStigma.com. And I invite anyone to just reach out to me if they ever have any questions about any of this stuff.
Awesome. They should definitely do that. And I want to thank you, Mike, for coming by and telling us in our little compressed window of time, first of all, how you were able to overcome this, this common and kind of, scary and sometimes even life-threatening problem. So that was cool. And also to tell us about just like your philosophy in this whole checklist thing and how you have the mission statement and the operations manual. It was all very helpful. So thanks for coming by and sharing all that stuff. And so one more time, just to make sure that everyone for sure 100% has it, where can they go? What website to find out more about you? One more time.
I'm going to just send everyone to TransformingStigma.com. That's the mental health one because I think that's the more important one, actually. So check out TransformingStigma.com.
Hey, it's Robert Plank. I really appreciate you listening to the interview we just ran with Mike. Be sure to go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review the show. Thank you.